Hey there, good evening. Nice to see you. Welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to reporters, writers, editors, journalists, people who put stuff out in the Bronx. We get to talk to them so you can kind of get a little more about what's really going on. In our second segment today, we have great news about young people in the Bronx who are doing something spectacular and wonderful right near Yankee Stadium, as a matter of fact. But you'll hear more about that. Right now, let's go and say good evening to the Associate State Politics reporter for City and State New York, Austin Jefferson. Nice to see you, Austin. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Gary.
Austin wanted me to say it in public. I think City and State is the best political paper, the best political publication in New York State. He challenged me to say it out loud, and I did. So there you go. And you're one of the people who helped make it so. We're recording this on Monday. It's going to air for the first time on Thursday. Excuse me, we're recording this on Tuesday. It's going to air for the first time on Thursday. Austin is fresh off the State of the State address by Governor Hochul. I was working and didn't get to see it or hear it. What are the highlights? What do we need to know?
Highlights, right. So I think for starters, she took a pretty strong stance on public safety, which, I mean, makes sense in an election year, obviously.
Let me just jump in on that. So that's politically expedient. Did she have any news about it? Was there going to be funding, or she was just casting herself as a public safety advocate?
Well, yeah, I mean, 20 million to DA's offices across the state,
Okay.
to help prosecute domestic violence cases. Committing to expanding penalties for retail theft, and also tax breaks for small business owners if they get security systems.
That's actually a very big
broadly,
thing.
She's definitely talked about this before, but just expanding,
Right. What I was going to say is the retail theft is obviously a national issue. There have been some questions as to how serious it really is, but I know for local store owners, it's very serious. I mean, there it is. Let's talk about housing. What did she say about housing? Because she didn't get her bill the last time, and presumably she wants to do something with it this time.
I mean, she came out pretty strong, just saying, we need to build more housing. She sort of points, other large cities across the country who have had similar problems, but New York, even though we have arguably the best city in the world, are a little bit behind on sort of meeting the need for affordable housing.
Right. Is there anything new in there, or it's really, do you think did she alter the plan that didn't make it last time? Or is she saying, look, this is the plan, let's go with it? I mean, is there anything new that we're going to have to know about?
I mean, it's the same sort of concepts, just a much smaller scale, 15,000 houses now, but, not necessarily just overruling local boards to build them, sort of repurposing underutilized state property to create, units, exploring more tax breaks for building affordable housing. So, I mean, these are all things she's talked about before.
She's already talked. Yeah, no, go ahead. Finish what you're saying.
But she's made it clear that this won't necessarily be the driving sort of thing she does this year.
Really? So she moved it down the priority scale. So what was the driving thing that she's going to be looking at this year that we haven't anticipated? Better relationships with the with the two legislative bodies? That would probably help. Sorry to be so sarcastic.
No, I mean, to be fair, I think she did make a point to say, we still have good relationships, although we disagreed pretty dramatically last year. But I honestly, I do think she's really trying to recommit to the idea that, public safety is important to New Yorkers. I mean, I don't think it's fair to say that it was the entire reason that the midterms went so poorly for Democrats. But I mean, I think the narrative of Democrats being soft on crime, didn't help.
Didn't help. And so that also suggests that that's coming out of the state Democratic Party, that they're saying we've got to, we've got to cast ourselves this way. So let's get into the. Now, we originally called you because we didn't anticipate the state of the state being today, but we originally called you because you wrote a very, very interesting and comprehensive story about redistricting. The Court of Appeals orders new round of redistricting before the 2024 elections. You know, I've tried to follow it. What are we getting this time around? And is it only a matter of time before this plan is then challenged again? I mean, how do you see what we're getting now when it comes to redistricting?
I mean, I think it's being talked about as if the process that we have, where the IRC, they draw up maps, it gets approved by legislature, done. That's what everyone's hoping to get done this time.
IRC, Independent Redistricting Commission. I just
Right.
wanted to be clear.
But I mean, that being said, if they couldn't sort of come to an agreement last time, that doesn't sort of spell out the most hopeful picture for this time. So I mean, if the legislature is put in a position where they have to redraw maps themselves, I think there's no way that New York Republicans don't sue again.
And then, of course, it's up in the air. Of course, now the chief judge is a Democrat appointed, and the legislature pushed very hard to make sure that was the chief judge. So you wonder if that's the way it's going to lean. You also wrote a piece which is really central in many ways, because many people believe that the three Democrats that lost in the Bronx were in New York State, were one of the reasons that Republicans control the House of Representatives. You wrote about Jamal Bowman being challenged for a more centrist candidate, George Latimer, who is the Westchester County executive, is going to run against him. How do you see this playing out? Democrats obviously are hoping that the new district lines will help them recapture the House.
Well, when you say playing out, are you talking about the race itself, or how,
Let's talk in general first, and then we can talk about Latimer versus Bowman.
I mean, I think if Democrats can, draw lines, well, assuming it gets to the point where
that was a mouthful. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
If the lines can be drawn in a way that Democrats feel is favorable, how's that?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a real chance to, pick up some seats, in the Hudson Valley, hypothetically in Long Island, up near Syracuse, maybe, that, could see those losses, if not sort of nullified, at least undoing some of the damage. So now let's just talk about the Latimer
Bowman thing. Now, this really came about, and George Latimer has really spoken with a loud voice, so to speak, against Bowman's feelings about Israel and the Gaza war. This is a classic, as far as I could see, a classic, I hate using terms like this, but liberal and left progressive versus a much more moderate candidate who is clearly going to come out strong for Israel. If the lines are redrawn, what's going to happen?
I mean, Latimer said it himself. If the lines go into more of the Bronx than it does now, there's a very low chance he's going to win. I mean, if you look at the map that,
and of course, it depends how far into the Bronx. I mean, I'm doing this because this is the southern part of the district. Yeah, go ahead.
Because I mean, yeah, if you look at the legislature's map that sort of snaked from the Bronx all the way up into Putnam County, I mean, hypothetically, something like that could be a bit more balanced. But at the end of the day, having a constituency that is, for a variety of reasons, going to be more aligned with Bowman compared to Latimer, whose name recognition is primarily in Westchester County, I mean, that's a case where I don't think there's really a path forward for him. But on the flip side, I mean, if
Let
we're
me just add one thing. Congressman Bowman had a large part of the Bronx before the last redistricting, and now he's got only a little sliver in there, and much of it is in Westchester. All
right,
right. And what you're saying is if it's either redone or slightly redone to carve out a larger part of the Bronx, then Bowman obviously will do better. These are the people who voted him over Elliot Engel, which was a very large uh, um, achievement, if you would look at it like that.
right, and I mean, honestly, some members of the community still don't love the fact that Engel, well, yeah, was voted out of office,
Well,
you know, for
absolutely.
Bowman. You know, that's in
Anyway,
August. Yeah,
yeah. Also, we're going to look at you and we should shout out to Rebecca Lewis, who's behind you. The two of you will work on this story about the governor's state of the state, and then we'll certainly look to city and state New York to find out all about uh, who's running where and in what districts. And we always appreciate you and your colleagues joining us on the Bronx Buzz.
thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you asking me to come.
Great. Austin Jefferson, Associate State Politics Reporter for City and State New York. We appreciate your time. Thank you. And folks, we're going to take a short break. And as I said, something wonderful is going on in the South Bronx. So stick around. You'll see it in a moment.